I am Whitney Kestner, your host for this episode of the Experience Darden podcast. Welcome to our episode all about Latin America. This edition of the Experience Darden podcast is a double feature. It combines interviews with Dawna Clarke, Executive Director of Admissions, and two current students from Latin America. In the first part of this episode, Dawna shares insights about her experiences traveling through the region and why Darden is such a great fit for students from Latin America. In the second half of this episode, second-year students Julie Calderon, Benavente, and Henrique Argollo share their experience as students, from the case method to recruiting to the famous Lhasa barbecues. Dawna will be visiting Brazil, Argentina, and Peru in January 2020. And if you are listening in or near one of these countries, we hope to see you on the road. And now, here's my interview with Dawna Clarke. Well, hello, Dawna. I'm so glad that you are joining me today. My name is Whitney Kestner, and I am a member of the admissions committee. And the discussion or the focus of our podcast today is going to be on the Latin American experience here at Darden. So I'm going to begin by welcoming Dawna Clarke, who is our Executive Director of Admissions, to talk about her experience recruiting in Latin America, and then also with upcoming round 2 deadline and some application tips. And then a little bit further on in the podcast, I will be joined by 2 students who will share their perspective and what they've enjoyed about their time at Darden. So, hello and welcome, Dawna.
Hi, Whitney. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about Latin America and Darden.
Well, great. Well, you have a wonderful history in admissions, and I know you've been on the podcast before and shared more about your background, but certainly many years here at Darden, many years at Tuck, and then now back here at Darden the last couple of years. But can you share with our audience a little bit more about when you've traveled to Latin America and what you've enjoyed about your time there?
Sure, I would be happy to. It's a region that's really near and dear to my heart. I had been at Darden for 15 years and then left and went to Tuck for 12 and came back 2 years ago. And during my first tenure at Darden, in the early 90s, international student representation was significantly lower than it is now. And there was a big push at the time to increase the international representation and increase the diversity of the representation. And it was my job to begin our recruiting efforts in Latin America, which was just such a joy. There was a tour company at the time, that still exists, called the MBA Tour, and they ran tours to Latin America. And one of the things that I so valued about traveling with colleagues from other schools to Latin America is the MBA Tour did a really great job of giving us books to read about the culture, bringing in guest speakers to talk about the economy or how the government is structured. So it was really educational. But I would say the thing that I enjoyed the most, that you just can't appreciate, I think, unless you go there, is just how relationship-oriented students are from that region. Just so warm and colorful and relationship-oriented. And I remember, again, this was back in the early 90s, asking people about why Latin America is sort of so relationship oriented. And what had been articulated to me at the time was that the infrastructure in many Latin American countries was not as sophisticated as it is in many other areas, and people really needed to depend on each other to get things done. And I just found such a dramatic difference when you met with people. They were just authentically interested in where you were from and your family, and just went out of their way to be welcoming. And honestly, with over 25 years of recruiting internationally, I'd say it's really a region that's near and dear to my heart because of the positive experiences I've had throughout Latin America. I just love going.
Oh, wonderful. Well, as you were relating that story, it definitely helps me get more of a picture of why we see Latin Americans thriving here at Darden. And something that's so essential to the Darden experience is learning from each other and building relationships inside the classroom and outside.
Right.
So I think that makes for a really natural transition for our students from this part of the world. We teach using the case method of instruction, bringing together a broader class of students from all different backgrounds, different academic training, professional experiences, upbringing. And when you bring all these interesting people together to learn and to have an amazing 2 years during their time as students, it's really something special.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. And one of the things, as you know, Whitney, we hear throughout the Darden community is what a good fit students from Latin America are with Darden, where, as you mentioned, it's a case method school. It's very team oriented. Relationship building is such an important skill set to have in business and to be successful at Darden. One of the things that I hear from faculty members and the administration is that the Latin American students tend to be a really nice bridge among, typically 38 different countries are represented. And because Latin American students tend to be very outgoing and relationship oriented, there is a tendency to be very inclusive, and they're just a great bridge to bring all the international students together. So I think that region is just such a good fit for what we value at the school and what is really helpful to have in terms of characteristics for leadership.
Certainly. So we've got a couple of trips planned or in the works being planned. And then we also have round 2 coming up in early January 2020. If we can shift our focus to maybe some application tips and some things for all of our candidates, but certainly those from Latin America to take into consideration and be thinking as they work on their application.
Yeah, great idea. So our next deadline, as you mentioned, is round 2. That's on January 6th. So people who are working on it now or considering Darden do have plenty of time. I would say one of the tips I would give is that our office goes out of our way to really be transparent and to give a lot of tips, such as this podcast. There are webinars coming up. There are 2 showcases that are coming up for prospective students. I have a series of videos with application tips on everything from your interview to essays to how to try to be authentic in the application process. So take advantage of what's available for free online on our website. The school is just so positively inclined towards Latin American students. We've had such a great track record and would love to see the number of Latin American students increase in the coming years. So that's a great factor to have in your favor. I will be going down to Latin America in mid-January for about a week and a half. And one of the things we're going to do for candidates who apply in round 2 is open interviews for candidates from Latin America.
Fantastic.
So I think that's a nice opportunity for a candidate to guarantee that they can get an interview with me. And I'm really looking forward to meeting people on that trip.
Sure. Well, and I know that the interview is such an important part of our overall process and something that we really enjoy, that opportunity to connect with a candidate. So whenever we have that opportunity to interview in person, I think that can be, just a wonderful way to share more about Darden, but also learn a lot from that prospective student and the insights they will bring.
I totally agree. I think it's a joy of our job. For listeners, Whitney and I just were in India a couple of months ago and conducted interviews there, and it was just a joy. And I'm looking forward to doing that in Latin America as well.
When I think about many of the candidates that I've met over the years and interviewed and read their applications, one thing I really value, we've talked a lot about the relationship building, but is that the work experience for many of our candidates from this region often begins while they're in their pursuing their undergraduate degrees. So they oftentimes bring, for where they are in their career, many more years of experience and exposure, which I think is something that is wonderful. Again, sort of tying it to the case method, where we're really looking for students that have a perspective to bring, can speak to their industry, the different companies that they've worked for, but then also their country, their part of the world, what's happening in Argentina,
right.
And how that impacts business, and what's happening in the political environment, what's happening in Chile and Peru. All of these things really are wonderful infusion of just cultural and business and government perspectives.
Absolutely. And you make a really good point, because I think for people who are applying from that region, they might not realize just how valuable and unique that perspective is. And for Darden to continue to be a well-known global business school, we really feel that it's important to have these perspectives integrated into the classroom so that you can learn from people from different regions, from different industries. Some people may wonder, too, how we assess things like work experience in a different region or undergraduate transcripts. And so many of us have been doing this for a long time. You've been doing it for years, and myself as well. And so rest assured that people are going to be reviewing your application who are familiar with the different educational systems in Latin America. You don't have to worry that we might not be familiar with your school. Oftentimes we are. We know that the grading system is a different grading system, and we're very well educated on the different educational systems that are throughout Latin America as well.
I'd love to hear your comments on standardized tests. Is that something we also talk about as we receive applications from candidates all over the world? Yeah. And, there's information that sort of lets us understand test taking in one country versus another versus a part of the world. So would love to hear your thoughts on standardized tests, and particularly for those applying from Latin America.
Well, I'm so glad you asked that, because I think I have somewhat non-traditional views about standardized tests. I do think that Darden, as you know, and so many of us know, is so well known for the quality of teaching and the quality of educational experience. We do want to make sure that a candidate who is gaining admission is academically prepared for Darden. But the way that we can assess that, I think, goes beyond standardized tests. So I think it's important, if you're an applicant who's thinking of applying to Darden, to be able to prove that you are prepared. But the manner in which you can prove that, I think, should be much broader than it has been historically. In the past, there's been quite a big emphasis on GMAT or GRE and the GPA. And I think it's important to, give it your best shot and study. And I always admire people who take those tests multiple times. But in this day and age, in 2019, there are so many alternative ways to show that you can do the work. So if it's not your undergraduate school, maybe it's some post-bac classes that you have taken while you're working. Some applicants take a class that used to be called HBX Core, is now rebranded as HBS Online. We see that fairly often. We do track what our average GMAT and GRE scores by different regions of the world and take that into consideration. Maybe you have quantitative work that is assigned to you as part of your job, and your recommender notes that you excel with the quantitative nature of your responsibilities. So I would think of it broadly, and the ability to paint a picture that, yes, I'm qualified, goes beyond standardized tests. We are test agnostic. We do accept the GMAT or the GRE. We truly don't have a preference on either one. I often encourage people to maybe take a couple practice tests in either one and see if one resonates more than others. There are test prep classes that you can take, but for the same price, I've seen candidates take HBS Online, which is a great sort of precursor to business school in terms of the subject matter that candidates are going to learn, and maybe a little bit more relevant to the first year curriculum. So I would say just kind of be creative in the picture that you paint about how and why you're academically prepared. And it does not have to exclusively focus on a standardized test.
Fantastic. Well, it's good to hear that, wonderful to hear your perspective. Appreciate all those tips and excited for you and your return travel coming up.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. I love the region of the world and have a lot of good friends that are Darden grads from, back in the 90s when I recruited them. So I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with them and hopefully meeting some of you on the road in mid-January.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dawna.
Thank you so much, Whitney.
That was my interview with Dawna Clarke, Executive Director of Admissions. And now, here is my conversation with two of our second-year students, Julie Calderon Benavente and Henrique Argollo. Well, welcome, Julie and Henrique. I am so delighted that you can join me for today's podcast. So a continuation of our discussion around Latin America and the strong connection with Darden and the experience here. So wonderful to have you both here to share your perspectives. So let's begin by, Julie, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about your background and why you chose Darden.
Yeah, my name is Julie. I come from Peru. Before Darden, I used to work in logistics and supply chain for a sportswear company back there. I decided to come to Darden because, one, I fell in love with the case method. I thought it was way out of my comfort zone and I wanted to experience that. And also because of the educational experience, I really wanted a place where it's very collaborative, and that's why Darden called me up.
Great, Julie. Henrique?
Yeah, so, hi, my name is Henrique. I'm from Brazil. I worked in finance back in Brazil, worked in a small, medium-sized bank. I've got the chance of working both in Rio and São Paulo, so two of the largest, main cities. And I came to Darden for a couple of reasons. Of course, the case method is one of them. When I looked at schools, I wanted a smaller class because I knew I wouldn't be friends with everyone, but I figured I would have a better chance instead of a 1,000 people class. Also, I wanted to live in a smaller city since I grew up and worked in both huge cities in Brazil. I wanted to kind of have this experience of living in a smaller community. And together with academics, just joined together, just made Darden perfect, and very happy I've been here.
Fantastic. Well, you both mentioned the case method. So for our audience, they may have experienced it, may have visited, but likely not. So if you can talk through a little bit around learning in the case method. Henrique, why don't you start off, and then, particularly as a student from Brazil, coming from the finance industry, what do you feel your perspective that you've been able to contribute to these discussions?
Yeah, so the case method, for me, it's very exciting. So I did engineering back in Brazil. So as you can think, it's huge lecture halls, professor talks all the time. You hardly ask a question, and then you study by the book. And so the case method for me was very different and exciting just because you're expected to participate. You're expected to have an opinion, and most often you actually change it as the discussion goes. So that's awesome. But also, you listen to what your peers are thinking. You get perspective of people from different cultures and totally different backgrounds and ways of growing up. So it's things that you'll never think about and never kind of read in a book. So for me, having that option and having that, having that opportunity was amazing. And then how I approached it for me is, of course, the finance classes were the one I felt more confident to speak up. But I think the professors and even the students help you get confident and motivated to speak. So finding out that I would raise my hand in a marketing class and talk in those was very exciting, and see how I developed.
Yeah. Julie, did you feel, from your Peruvian background, that you were able to help your classmates maybe understand more?
Yes, it was definitely very challenging. The way that they teach in Peru is definitely different. It's more theory, and I found the classes somewhat boring. And here it was basically the students that lead the class, and it was very exciting for me to even showcase my experience and raise my hand to some classes where I was surprised that I knew and I could help, and even the students in my class were helpful, and they always were grateful for my comments too.
Great. So a history or a background, I should say, in supply chain.
Yeah.
What did you do this past summer, and what are you hopeful to do after you graduate?
This past summer, I interned at Google in the hardware planning and fulfillment team, basically doing logistics and supply chain too. I really wanted to continue. I know now, and I'm pretty sure that I want to do that when I finish Darden. I'm not sure where I'm going yet, but definitely the tech industry and supply chain is what I want.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Henrique, how about you? What did you do this summer?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of, it was interesting because I came to Darden thinking I would try to pivot and learn something different, and I ended up going back to finance, and I'm doing investment banking in New York at Deutsche Bank. I'm very excited. It's a lot of work, but for investment banking, New York is the mecca of it. So being able to learn there, experience it, I think it's going to be huge for my career and success in the future.
Can you talk a little bit about what you experienced in terms of recruiting in the United States and how that may or may not have been different from what you experienced out of undergrad, and how you sort of found the career services here, the clubs and organizations to help support you in that?
Recruiting for international students here is a little bit tough, but it's definitely not impossible. CDC has helped me a lot in trying to first focus in what I wanted and see the companies that are a better fit for me. Also, we do a lot of mock interviews and preparation for it. And I think in the end, it helps a lot that we've been prepared.
Yes.
And
all those cases.
I know. Also, the case method helps a lot with some case interviews that we've had. So, yes.
Great.
Yeah, so for me, it was very interesting because it changed completely. In Brazil, it's usually for you to get an interview, it's based on your resume, and they look at that piece of paper, kind of tells what your future is, and then of course you have to be prepared for the interview. And here, I found out it's completely the opposite in a way. Sometimes your CV doesn't really matter. And it's more of having to network, get to know people that work there, talk to them, and talk to 8-9 people inside the bank, to actually get the invite for an interview. So that, joined with academics and everything else, it's a lot of work, but it's definitely doable. I think, of course, for us Latins and even other cultures coming into a different culture, it's harder. You have to overcome that to recruit. But I echo Julie, and it's totally doable no matter what career you choose. You just have to row the boat sometimes harder than your peers.
Will you break down that networking a little bit more? All these calls, what do you discuss on these phone calls? Yeah,
so it's kind of interesting because usually the best calls I had, I didn't talk about finance or the bank.
Yeah.
So you talk about random stuff, sports sometimes weather, sometimes traveling, sometimes like a number of subjects. But you also use them to get to know what the culture of the company you're going to is. Who are the people that are working in the group? What are their background? Try to find similarities with yourself, what you're thinking for yourself and career. So, it's interesting because, you kind of get to know people, although superficially, but you do. And it's very different. Like I said, they start judging you more of what you're talking and what you're asking and how you're talking and how you present yourself rather than where you worked at, what you did and how important in your last job you were.
Yeah, your interpersonal skills, your ability to work on a team.
Exactly.
To collaborate, but also be a leader. All things hopefully you've honed in your time at Darden. So, all right, we've talked about work, sort of the career search and the academic, but there's another part, I would think, of your Darden experience, outside of class, outside of recruiting. Julie, what clubs and organizations have you gotten involved in during your time?
Oof, there are too many to count. Right now, I'm president of the Global Business and Culture Club, and I'm also the VP of events for Resilience Initiative,
yes.
Which is dear to my heart. I also participate a lot in the LASA Club. Being Latin America, I'm very passionate about it. But also there's the outdoor clubs that I enjoy a lot because we go hiking almost every weekend. And well, yeah, there's kind of all of
Would you mind sharing a little bit more about the Resilience Initiative?
We're just going to have Resilience Week next week. We're planning to, we know that Darden is just not about education and recruiting. We know that this is challenging, and we try to help first-year students, especially, and some second-year students that are having maybe a rougher time than some others, just to be more resilient, to know that they're not alone in this, and that there's help, that if they need it, we can try to help.
And it's okay to ask for help.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's been something I've really enjoyed watching over the last couple of years, that initiative, the Resilience Week, really build momentum and be something that I think all students greatly appreciate.
Especially in November, which is the start of the applications and interviews. So, that's why we wanted to do it at the start.
Good timing.
Yeah.
And, you're not involved in anything, are you, Henrique?
Yeah, no. Socially, I think Darden has a lot to offer, and it kind of touches back a little bit when I said the small city. So, like everything you do in Darden, there's someone from Darden there. It doesn't matter if you're going to a party from Darden or if you're going to a bar randomly in the city.
Yeah.
So that for me is really nice. But I am also very involved in clubs. I try to be a member of all affinity clubs because I think every club has something to offer, and like in different perspectives. I'm also the president of LAZA, which is a lot of work since we try to get a lot of people together in barbecues and Dia de los Muertos parties and carnival parties. And there are a lot of events that we try and bring Darden as a community together. So I'm very grateful and very happy because it's an interesting challenge. And like it's good to give back and be a part of the community.
What's your favorite LASA event?
The barbecues for me are my favorite. I think, like the parties are nice, but the parties usually does not bring everyone in Darden. It's usually more, like the families and people that have smaller kids won't really attend.
Oh, okay.
So the barbecues for me are really nice because like it's everyone. It's a good part of the day, hopefully sunny. And the food is also great. So I think it's a great event, in Darden.
Yeah. Is there a component to LASA that sort of is beyond that social component? Do you help support students in the career search process at all?
Yeah. So even in LASA, we're trying 2 programs this year. One is the Buddy, which is basically pairing first years with second years that did the career or try to like recruit for the career that they're interested in. So we're doing that, which helps a lot, and especially if the first years reach out and they're really using the Buddy. And we also have another one that we kind of copied from GWIB, which Julie can mention GWIB later, but it's just kind of a connection that you have, someone that you can talk about more personally and more about academics and less about career.
Okay. Just
to help out in how the life is at Darden, because first year gets a little bit chaotic and overwhelming.
So, copying is the highest form of flattery. So you mentioned the Graduate Women in Business, GWIB. So is that an organization you're part of?
I'm not VP, but I do participate a lot, and they have this mentorship program where a first year is also coupled with the second year, and it's not much about academics, but it's more of like how your first year is going to be. We know that we already been through this, so we can help you, and it's mostly to try to get some second years to meet first years, because here with so many people, it's kind of difficult to meet everyone. So it's just another opportunity to help.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Well, certainly you all made a big decision to leave your home country and move to Charlottesville. And it sounds like you've really immersed yourself in the community here. Have you had an opportunity to travel beyond, whether it's throughout the U.S. or to go on any of our Darden Worldwide courses?
I did a DWC to Japan. We traveled in the spring. Before, a group of us went to Australia.
Oh, great.
Thinking that because we were already crossing the pond, it was going to be closer. It was not, but it was very, very nice. We traveled to Sydney and then Cairns, and it was amazing, something that I've never experienced. And Japan was also a different culture, something that I never imagined I could see. We had the opportunity to go to all these companies that we've talked about in cases like Toyota and also some other companies that had such a culture shock for me that I think I learned a lot, and also just like the touristic things that are in Japan it's very amazing.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah. I hear great things about that DWC.
It was great. And the food was also amazing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I had a chance of traveling a lot too. I did my DWC to China, which was like incredible. I can't even find the words to actually explain, but it was so different, and like seeing China and how it grew and learning about their culture and their business was amazing. And then after that, I took the opportunity to go to Japan on my own. Which was also very nice. But I think Darden, again, it's because of the community, people will plan trips on their own and get a group of people together. Last year, I knew like more than 60 people went like Costa Rica and Colombia. I went with a group of like 15 people to Puerto Rico. There are a bunch of opportunities for you to travel throughout the entire year. I'm doing a class now that will take me to Gettysburg, which I'm very excited. A rich part of history that you don't really study back in Brazil. Mm-hmm. So the opportunities are there, and you're going to meet so many people that you're definitely going to travel somewhere awesome, and you're going to remember.
And it's not just outside of the U.S. We as internationals like to get to know like the U.S. too.
Oh, yes.
There's the tech track. We went to San Francisco to visit some companies there, which was really helpful for my recruiting process.
I know
there's also a finance track to New York.
Yeah, we went to New York, which was also amazing. We visited like 14 banks in a week. So yeah, and like it's interesting.
New York hours.
Yeah, and you see different like how the banks are set up. Like I came from a bank, right? And I was like different how cubicles and like spaces are set up.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. It's definitely a great experience to have.
Well, I've so enjoyed our conversation and appreciate your sharing about your experiences. If we can end on, is there any advice or any insight that you would like prospective students, particularly from Latin America, to keep in mind as they think through business school and Darden?
Yeah, for me, I think if you have the chance to come here, do. I came, some other Latins that have the opportunity to come and visit us and talk to first years and second years. I think you'll get a lot from it, way more than what you look on the website. So for me, I know it was important. I made friends even in my theoretically third year. So people that are not even in Darden, but because I came, I got their contact and kept in touch. So I think it's a great option. And if you do have the opportunity to come, I know it's hard, do come because you're not going to regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also don't be afraid to like ask and communicate with everyone that you know at Darden. I remember when I got here, like before when I was admitted, I didn't know there were more Peruvians in here. Right. And I had a mentor, but never occurred to me to ask if there were other Peruvians. Yeah. And when I got here, there was a whole community of us. So just don't afraid to ask and just talk to as much as people as you can.
Yeah. Echoing that, even if you don't have a mentor, because it's, I think maybe later when you got accepted or something like that, but like going in LinkedIn and finding a Darden alum or even a Darden current student and reaching out, I'm sure you're going to get a response pretty quickly, and they will all be available for you to call and talk and have an opinion about the school and recruiting and everything.
Fantastic. Well, good advice, both of you. So, well, thank you both. And, I know this is your second year at Darden, and so hopefully you will make the most of this time. And thank you for your many contributions to our community, and excited for what's next. So,
yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
And that was my conversation with Julie and Henrique, two second-year students who will be graduating in May 2020. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, things you would like us to cover here on the Experience Darden podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at darden@virginia.edu. And until next time, thanks for listening.